Sarah Boone was married to her husband Brian for 13 and a half years and had a 10-year-old son together when they decided to split. It was a rough time for Sarah, and when she decided to move on, she left her house and went across the street to a bar. And that's when she met Jorge Torres. George was also coming off of a marriage, his second. Soon, they connected and began a relationship. That relationship, much like their previous marriages, had a combination of good times and bad times. They were living together in an apartment, but at times, George would pack up and leave, then he would come back. There was also violence in the relationship. Police responded to calls several times and both were charged, but they always ended up back together. Then on February 23rd, 2020, things went really bad. After a night of drinking wine, doing puzzles, and painting pictures, George got into a suitcase. Sarah zipped it shut. George begged her to let him out. Sarah taunted him and went to sleep. The next morning, George was dead. Now Sarah is on trial for second-degree murder. She testified yesterday, and now her defense is trying to prove that she is the victim. Tonight, all the big moments, all the best analysis as we are live from Orlando, Florida with our in-depth coverage of the suitcase murder trial. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Another big day down in Central Florida in the Orange County Courthouse in Orlando, where the case against Sarah Boone is taking place. Let's just reset all of this and make it crystal clear that Jorge Torres, a grown man, died inside of a suitcase. He could have been saved very easily. Very simple. Just open the suitcase when a man is begging for his life and he'd be alive. But he isn't, because she didn't. Now let's talk about the suitcase. We've got the dimensions of it. When you stand it up, it's rectangular. When you stand it up, it's 2 feet 4 inches. 2 feet 4 inches. That's how high the suitcase is. Jorge Torres wasn't a huge man, but he was 5'2". Okay, that's more than double this. So think about what it would be like to get in there. Okay, you can get in there for a moment, have a laugh, or just say, okay, I can do it. But then you're in there and you're stuck and you can't get out. And your breathing is restricted because of the way you're crumpled up. The oxygen is limited because the suitcase is zipped shut. And then you imagine how this man suffered and how this man died. Can't lose sight of that. And I don't think the jury is either. I really don't. And now we get to the trial and we get to the defense. And the defense is, prosecutors, you got it all wrong. Sarah Boone is saying, I'm the victim here. She's alive, but she's the victim. She had to defend herself that night. Like, I've seen a lot of self-defense cases. Never one where the instrument used to defend oneself is a suitcase. Strange, bizarre, out of left field. But because of the self-defense and everything else, what's happening now is that Jorge Torres is now on trial. The victim is on trial for everything that he did in their relationship, everything that transpired. The problem is we don't hear the other side of it. We don't hear George's perspective on the tumultuous aspect of what was going on behind closed doors and why it was happening. And whether or not it was back and forth or if it was all going one way. But make no mistake, right now, the case against Sarah Boone is now the case against Jorge Torres. That's the way it's playing right now inside of the courtroom. So let's go to Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft, who was inside the courtroom today and joins us live from that historic courthouse in Orange County, Florida. Kelly, great to see you tonight. Another big day today. I mean, really another big day.
Hey there, Vinnie. It absolutely was. And why is that? Well, defense counsel had a witness on the stand, Dr. Julie Harper, who was able to say, who testified that Sarah Boone did suffer from battered spouse syndrome at the time that she let Jorge Torres die inside that suitcase. Why don't we go ahead and listen to some of her testimony?
In your opinion, and I know you've gone over this event with Sarah Boone, this February 23rd, 2020 event. Is your opinion that she was suffering from battered spouse syndrome at the time of that event?
Yes, she had the patterns ingrained in her behavior that would be typical of a victim who's responding to traumatic events in a predictable way. So that would fit that.
And it's fair to say that because of the intimate partner and the prior violence, that you would have a heightened sense of when danger was about to occur?
Yes.
When a threat was about to occur?
Yes.
And Vinnie, when Dr. Harper was on the stand, she said that Sarah Boone's weapon, it was her words. So because he was in that suitcase, now she actually had a weapon, and that was her speaking to him, her words. That's why she sounded sharp in her tone and short in her tone. She was experiencing a high-level anxiety at that time and stress. And that's why when we see that recording and we hear that recording of the way she's talking to Jorge Torres, according to this doctor, that's why she's speaking the way she is. He's inside that suitcase. He can't get her, and her weapon is her word. So that's why she's talking to him that way.
Interesting, because if you put that on top of the timing of how she says George is acting, he does not get violent until after the video. So it's like she's initiating, her weapon is the first weapon drawn under that analysis, which is interesting. Dr. Harper also talked about the narcissistic personality traits.
She did, and this is something the state has really tried to get across in its examination, the cross-examination. They're trying to get out there that she really just was a narcissist, that she had a personality disorder. It was narcissism. And so on cross-examination, she was really asked about this, but she wasn't really taking the bait. She did say that Sarah Boone had some traits of the personality disorder for narcissism, but not enough to say that she should be diagnosed with that. So then the defense counsel did ask about it. Let's hear what defense counsel said to her on direct examination.
In meeting with her as part of the evaluation, the narcissistic traits that I identified would have to do with, as she described, being a straight-A student. She reiterated about her abilities, and I felt that that was evidence that she had low self-esteem, and her coping mechanism was to identify what made her stand out, and that would be consistent with a narcissistic trait.
And again, she said that Sarah Boone does not have that personality disorder, but the state did say that the check marks were checked for 3 of them. For instance, that she has a grandiose sense of self, in which she's trying to tell Jorge Torres all the time that I'm the best thing that ever happened to you.
Now, something else that everyone's talking about today was this video that was shown in court today. Tell us about that. Give us a little bit of the context, and let's take a look at it.
Okay, so this video is kind of tough to look at depending upon, you know, your perspective on things. I know some people have taken a look at it and they don't think that it's that jarring. But when you hear about the context of it, what Sarah Boone has described when she was on the stand yesterday, she talked about this and said that why was this happening? You're going to see Jorge Torres smashing a television set. And she said that her ex-husband would come over sometimes and help fix the TV because their son that they shared together, Sarah Boone shared shares a son with Brian Boone. He'd like to watch this TV. Well, Jorge Torres found out that Mr. Boone would be coming over sometimes, and he did not like this. So then he wanted to smash the television set and told Sarah, this is according to her testimony, that she needed to videotape it. Let's go ahead and watch it.
Real you're gonna help me take it out. You're gonna help me take this out.
And again, Vinnie, that monitor was the monitor that her son would watch videos on and play video games on. And so that video, of course, shows Jorge Torres taking a bat to it and destroying it because, according to Sarah Boone, he didn't like the fact that her husband was coming over to fix it sometimes.
And he's making allegations that she's doing something with her husband? Like, it's not just coming over to fix the TV. He's coming over and doing something else, and that's what sort of set him off?
Yeah, making an allegation that he's coming over for Sarah to do something else to him.
Wow. Now, is this the only image that the jury has seen of the victim in this case, Jorge Torres? You know, swinging a bat and breaking a television?
This is it, Vinnie. So obviously most of the images that we have seen are of Sarah Boone and the injuries that she sustained at, according to her testimony, the hands of Jorge Torres. But this video, you could tell the defense was really glad that it was able to come in, because none of this could have come in unless she took the stand and talked about that overt act, his hand coming out of the suitcase, according to her testimony. And so yesterday she talked about this on the stand, but defense counsel waited till today to put this into evidence and have the jurors take a look at it.
And obviously, there are certain things he's saying on the video that we can't play on the air, but the jury heard all of that, right? The jealous accusations of what Sarah is doing to her ex-husband.
Yes, yes, the jurors heard all of it. And in regard to their reaction, Vinnie, they have seen so much in this case. A lot of their reaction came yesterday when they were watching and taking a look at a lot of these images of Sarah Boone and the pretty devastating injuries she had, especially on that one on her leg when she had been stabbed, and those second-degree burns. Today, when this video was playing, they were taking notes. They've taken so many notes throughout this case. Not tons of reaction, though, when they were watching this video. It's as if they've heard so many bad things about him, they were just ready for it.
Yeah, I've been covering the story for 4 years, and this is really the most in-depth look at Jorge Torres that I've come across. I mean, a couple snapshots, and that's about it. And now there's a video of him smashing a television. Wow. Okay. Kelly Craft in Orlando. I know this is a big week coming up. We still have a lot more to get to. Thanks so much. All right, let me bring in our expert clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and author of the book, The New Rules of Attachment. Dr. Judy Ho is with us. Okay, Dr. Judy, I want to put up on the screen some of the injuries that Sarah Boone that's been shown to this jury, and that's not an Amber Heard black eye. That's a real black eye we're looking at there in that photo. The jury's seeing that, then they're seeing the stitches, and they're seeing the damage to her leg, being stabbed with a steak knife. And I want you to listen to one more thing, which is Sarah Boone explaining why she stayed with him, and then I need your analysis.
As anyone who has ever been in love, or when you love someone, or primarily someone or something, you go above and beyond, and you tolerate and you endure and you persevere, and you try to make that person as spectacular as you possibly can, no matter the sacrifice that you may have to go through to serve someone else in a positive light so they can be better people for themselves, and to just make them a happier person and love Love is very strong and love is very deep. And love, I believe, is not fully understood in a lot of ways for how different people react to it. And I very much, deeply, and passionately love George. I love him to this day.
Okay, let's putting all the pieces together here, right? What she's saying there, what we saw from Jorge Torres, the injuries we've seen on Sarah, and then what the trial is all about. You know, he's in a suitcase begging for his life, and she doesn't unzip it, and she goes to sleep. What's going on in this relationship?
Yeah, so Vinnie, like you said, this is one of our first in-depth looks at George and how he interacts with Sarah. And I think the forensic psychologist's point in bringing up battered spouse syndrome, which actually originally was called battered women syndrome, because it really focused on women victims of intimate partner violence, is that this person has been in a helpless state for such a long time that it's a mitigating factor to explain why they would kill their partner, even in a moment where their partner is not actually posing an immediate threat to them, right? We did not hear of anything like that. They were playing around, having a nice evening, it seemed, when she, quote unquote, playfully put him in the suitcase, right? It wasn't a time when he was actually lunging at her. And so the way that this has been used, though, in legal cases has been mixed success at best, because it's really hard to understand why somebody in whatever state of mind that they're in would think that this would be the time to kill their spouse or their partner when they're not actually posing an immediate threat. And so I think that it's really tough, especially when you look at her demeanor on the stand. Everyone responds to trauma differently, clearly. But at the same time, there's such an emotionless and yet almost predictable way that she's speaking about it. It's almost like her emotions aren't actually connected to the situation, which is, this is a loss of a life that you caused. And I think that those are the big questions that the jury's likely percolating right now as they're listening to all of this testimony.
And the way I look at what happened that night with George and Sarah, there's three stages of this. There's the laughing and joking as he gets in and she zips it shut. Then once that happens, then she turns on the phone and we see and hear her taunting him. Right? And he's begging for his life at that moment. He's begging for his life. Please open this. I can't breathe. She's taunting him and ridiculing him, laughing at him.
Right.
Then in the final stage, what she described, you know, if you take her word for it, is then it turns to he's threatening to kill her and she's now in fear. What are your thoughts about those three stages of what the defense is alleging happened here?
Well, I would say that there isn't a logical following from that stage 2 to stage 3, from where she is taunting him. She's in a power position. And the way that she describes how much she adores and loves this person, that doesn't seem to comport with that, right? Because if you really love this person, why would you be taunting them and filming this? And then the next stage saying that now you're fearful for your life. Well, he's in a suitcase. And then you went to sleep after that. So how did we arrive at that final stage when you thought that, okay, well, maybe I am afraid of him. Let's just take that as a given if that's what they are saying. But then your best idea is then to go to sleep instead of handle the situation, or somehow maybe leave the house just in case, if you are so afraid of him, he actually got out of the suitcase somehow and might come and attack you in the middle of the night. So I think there's just a lot of missing pieces in terms of what we have to understand to be able to follow Sarah's actions to a logical conclusion.
Yeah, and I mean, part of her testimony is that the suitcase wasn't zipped all the way shut, right? There's part of it open. He's trying to get his hand out. That's when she gets the baseball bat, and then she leaves. So now the suitcase, presumably, from her perspective, is still open, and there's still the potential threat of George getting out, according to her. Dr. Judy Ho, great to have you on the program. Thank you so much. When we come back, we'll bring in our live think tank in the studio. What do they think of this? Plus, coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates the Delphi murder case, Richard Allen has been accused of murdering Abby Williams and Libby German, but the defense says this is an injustice and the wrong man has been charged. Tonight, newly revealed evidence about how the girls were killed.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
Sarah Boone is charged with second-degree murder after her boyfriend suffocated inside of a suitcase.
Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
I thought he was okay.
The Suitcase Murder Trial. Live coverage weekdays, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Michael Brannon, B-R-A-N-N-O-N. I'm a forensic psychologist.
What does that mean?
It's the way the science of psychology and mental health helps to give opinions on various legal issues, whether it be in family cases or personal injury cases or criminal cases like we're here in today.
Is reasonable different for a person who is a battered spouse as opposed to just a regular person who's never endured abuse?
Yes, ma'am. Their perceptions have changed. What their strategy is to survive, and so that's changed the way they view their situations.
And so specifically Marsha Thompson, she in this situation did reasonably believe that she was going to be killed right then.
That's my opinion, yes, ma'am.
Deputy, stop it! Stop it!
Do you remember that moment on Court TV? Marsha Thompson found not guilty in the Orange County Courthouse after the testimony of her expert, Dr. Michael Brannon. Wow. Guess who was in court today in the Orange County Courthouse testifying for the defendant? Dr. Michael Brannon. So the question tonight is, what he did for Marsha Thompson on the right, setting her free, will it set Sarah Boone free on the left? Same courthouse, same expert. Will it be the same result? Take a listen. Here's Dr. Michael Brannon on the stand today testifying for Sarah Boone.
Doctor, from what you've described this morning, I think we're talking about a complex and sophisticated process for assessing and diagnosing PTSD, battered women, the matters that you described. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
And in this instance, this particular matter regarding the state versus Sarah Boone, were you approached about the possibility of doing an assessment as to Sarah Boone?
Approach.
Have you done an assessment in this particular case?
No, sir.
Can you tell us very briefly whether that was your decision?
Objection, relevance.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I can move on.
Objection sustained.
That was a little weird, right? Dr. Michael Brannon's in the court, but not able to give his assessment of the defendant, Sarah Boone. But he did testify today. Take a listen to what he talked about.
Would that individual potentially experience hypervigilance?
Well, that's a large part of it. Of any trauma-based disorder is hypervigilance. What changes when you've been traumatized, any kind of trauma, not just abuse, but what changes is your perception of danger. So whether it's the lid of the garbage can hitting you on your nose, or whether it's someone being abusive towards you, those situations change your perception of danger. So you no longer see that object or that person in the same way. You have a foreboding sense of danger could occur. So other people may not perceive it with that person. He's so nice at work, or he's nice in these other settings, or he's so great on the softball field, but at home he's different. So that person who's being abused, their perception changes.
Now, I mean, he's smart. He knows what he's talking about. I know. He's been on my show tons of times through the years here at Court TV. But he wasn't able to give the opinion about Sarah Boone. He's kind of laying the groundwork for hypervigilance as part of a victim of being a battered spouse or battered intimate partner. So they did call a different doctor, Dr. Julie Harper. Take a listen.
Considering the totality and the time you spent with her and the other records, did you diagnose Sarah Boone with anything?
Yes, so post-traumatic stress disorder, it's my opinion at the time of the offense, she had depression and she had an alcohol use disorder.
In your opinion, and I know you've gone over this event with Sarah Boone, this February 23rd, 2020 event, is your opinion that she was suffering from battered spouse syndrome at the time of that event?
Yes, she had the patterns ingrained in her behavior that would be typical of a victim who's responding to traumatic events in a predictable way. So that would fit that.
And it's fair to say that because of the intimate partner and the prior violence, that you would have a heightened sense of when danger was about to occur.
Yes.
When a threat was about to occur.
Yes.
A threat of danger.
That's right.
All right, let's bring in the think tank. Joining us live in studio tonight, criminal defense attorney, entertainment attorney, former assistant DA in Atlanta, Daryl Cohen. Also with us, criminal defense attorney and Emory University law professor, Molly Palmer. And criminal defense attorney, the man behind the glasses, Josh Schiffer. All right, is she battered?
Well, let's start with, this is Orlando. SeaWorld, Universal, and Disney World. And this is Orlando. It's very predictable. Look, what happened is likely to be, it was a game. He got in the suitcase. She zipped it up. And then it became fearful. Oh my gosh, he is now threatening me. I'm not letting him out. The hand out of the suitcase, the bat, he's not coming anywhere. So I understand the testimony of the psychologist, both of them. And I think, though the first psychologist couldn't testify about her, he in effect did. He laid out the facts, and a smart jury, and juries are pretty smart in Orlando. Orange County is a great place for a jury.
This is the place where that sent Casey Anthony home. Let's just remind everyone.
I was gonna say, can we apologize to the fine people of Orlando for their justice? And Daryl will not be vacationing there anytime soon. I don't advise traveling with Daryl, but he is on the right track when it comes to the importance of these two psychologists, because they did do two important things. First one is set up the structure, and the second is fit the diagnosis to it. Now, it could have been a lot stronger. It could have had a lot more violence and traditional battered spouse syndrome stuff. But what I think we're going to see develop, and this is shocking to people who are just like, guilty, guilty, guilty. You can have a rapid change in demeanor, especially in response to a stimulus. Especially if you have...
Whose demeanor are you talking about?
I'm talking about Sarah Boone, where she went from happy, playful, lovey to terrified because of a stimulus response linked to her alcohol use, depression, and underlying mental health.
What's the stimulus response, though? What's the, I mean...
Something he said while locked in the suitcase. Get me out of here now!
Her own testimony is he doesn't say anything until after the video, and she's the one in the video kind of, using her weapon, as it was described, her words against him. Like, she initiated this and is now claiming some level of self-defense.
Right, and I think the issue here, Vinny, is that you're thinking a little bit more about these traditional self-defense cases where somebody intrudes on your property or they threaten you, they're the aggressor, and you have, in that moment, in a split-second decision, decide to defend yourself with force, with immediacy. Battered spouses syndrome is different, and what the defense has done here is try to educate the jury on these nuanced differences, right? It's more complex than that. It's something that emerges, this reaction emerges at times when you might least expect it to. You're not responding to something with that instantaneous immediacy. Rather, you have a long history of a tumultuous and abusive relationship that all of a sudden comes to this point. And in that moment, now, you respond. Is it in self-defense? In effect, it is. But it's not a traditional self-defense case by any means.
Right, it's more like the traditional burning bed we talk about, right?
Or think of the volcano that's building and building and building, and suddenly...
Who's the volcano? Is it George or is it Sarah?
They. Both.
And it's the immediacy that I think people struggle with, because like Molly's saying, there's not someone with a knife about to stab you or harm you. No, this was perpetual chronic issues that magnified and
this
manifested.
is the image. I mean, we just saw it. The image of George with the baseball bat. She's testified, though, that she used the bat. I presume it's the same one. It's her son's bat that she used on him, on his hand, as he's trying to get out of the suitcase. Is that problematic?
Yes.
That she's using a baseball, and she admitted it. Like, she had to admit it because she did it.
I think it's a little problematic, but on the other hand,
the man's in a suitcase and getting hit with a baseball bat.
But she's not in that moment. She's in the moments where she received a black eye, the times she was beaten, and that's the moment she was in.
And she's admitted everything in this trial.
just about.
Right?
Just about.
She told her story straight up. The lack of emotion, sure, it lands weird, and there's lots of commentary on how she looks and what she's like. But we've got someone with a profound issue, mental health-wise, that's gone through a trauma, and just like the good doctor talked about, what you think people should react like when they experience trauma. That's not accurate.
Let's talk about the demeanor. Let's take a look at Sarah Boone on the stand yesterday.
I want you all to know that the majority of the time, am always afraid and always scared.
All right, well, I understand that. Okay, I understand that. But would it be fair to say that you had some anger at that point?
I did.
Would it be fair to say that you wanted to tell him off to some degree?
I just wanted, yes, for him to have a better understanding, which was the whole point of the videos and documentation prior.
And you could tell that he was uncomfortable.
I'm guessing.
And did you want him to feel some uncomfort?
I did.
It's a little more than uncomfort. Okay, it's a little bit more than that. All right, Molly, what do you think of her on the stand, just like in general?
I mean, okay, in general, here's the thing, and I don't know if everyone will agree with me, but we've been following this case for so long. We know that
4 years.
Yeah, she's gone through 8 attorneys. We saw her little like flyer about please represent me, right? I'm sorry, but this trial has matriculated through in a way that I am far more impressed with Sarah Boone and the defense than I ever thought I would be. So there you go. First of all,
I've already said that.
That's where we are, okay?
I've already said that.
I mean, she took the stand, and I'm sorry. I mean, I'm surprised as everyone else. She did fairly well.
She's not off the track.
She did fairly well.
She is not a screaming lunatic. She is not a loose cannon who is offensive. She's not picking fights. It makes me believe, like some of those clients we've all
Do
had.
we think she's been sober behind bars? Maybe?
Well,
that
probably has
helps,
something
right?
to do it.
She
But it's
now
that
appears to
client.
be benign, which is nice, because she committed a violent act in her own mind. It wasn't that moment. It was before, leading up to it, and now she's telling the truth. Her body language, her facial expressions, her tone of voice.
Is she garnering sympathy, Josh?
I think that she's truth-telling, and if the state over-attacks her, that's going to bite him in the rear, because she's giving
She's
the
charged with
state-
murder. I mean,
absolutely, and she's asking a jury, here's my story, here's what happened. It's tough to understand, but I'm not guilty, and it was honest.
All right, stay where you are. When we come back, we'll talk about the cross-examination and probably one of the most interesting moments of the trial when Sarah Boone takes control of the suitcase.
Ms. Boone, can you demonstrate for the jury where Mr. Torres' head was and how his body was positioned in the suitcase, if you don't mind?
His back was this way and his head was here.
All right, and then is it fair to say his feet are kind of down here, which would be the front left corner from their perspective in the jury box?
Yes.
And then his knees are kind of tucked up towards his face.
If I remember correctly, yes, that's the position.
When you say that was zipped shut, show us.
Are you talking about how I zipped it, or?
When you're done zipping
Like
it
the hole.
shut and he's inside of it, where are the zipper components?
Just tell me where it's at.
I mean, it was the corner. I mean, the corner was
right here?
open. I mean, it's not. Yes, this one was already pretty much. From what I can remember. That's how he was coming with his hand out. It was like this from the corner part.
What a moment during the cross-examination of Sarah Boone. And what we have here, this suitcase, same exact dimensions. It was not an oversized suitcase, it was this suitcase. And what I've done here is I've left it unzipped the way that Sarah Boone said that she left it unzipped. Do we believe her? because she has it. I mean, it's not just like a little spot here. This is the way she was showing the jury. And if we can kind of turn it this way a little bit, you can kind of see. Do you believe her?
I believe that she believes what she's testifying to is the truth. They had been drinking. She was upset. She was feeling all of the years and times she had been abused. So yes, I believe that her testimony is truthful, but I don't necessarily believe that her truthful testimony is accurate.
I mean, if this is like this much, he could have gotten out if she left it open that much.
I mean, he's all folded and contorted in there.
Well, the way he's folded.
Like, you know, he's have his...
I don't believe you could physically will yourself to not break out. Your body at some point starts spasming, freaking out. You can't.
She described his head up here, which would put his back here, and then his knees up here, and he's probably, his head's got to be kind of bent over a little bit like this. Probably his neck is here, and then his legs kind of come up that way.
And so then the hand would be right there.
Yeah,
the right hand would be
It's
right
like
there, and the right hand would come up, you know, trying to get out.
It's like a
I don't
fetal
believe
position.
her. I don't believe that she left it unzipped that much. I just don't, because I think he could have gotten out. He could have stuck his head through there.
I mean, when you do these demonstrative reenactments in court, you know, with the evidence, it's not always going to be exact, right? And we noticed in that really kind of powerful moment that her defense lawyer kind of came in and assisted a bit.
Right.
So I don't know, is the jury interpreting it as being exact and precise, or are they just saying, look, this is a general,
Well, there's a big
amalgamation?
difference if you zip it shut with the two zippers, right? And one of the zippers was broken, and there was a paper clip on it at some point. But there's a difference between leaving like a little piece like this open, right? Which is what I always imagined during the course of the trial, that it was like just this little tiny piece right here. What she's describing is like this, and it's flexible. Like you could get your hands through there. You might be able to push this a little bit. You might be able to get your head. I don't think there's any way she did it. I think she zipped it like this, and there's no way he could get out.
I think that she remembers the way she wants to remember. Memories are fallible. And when you're drinking and you're upset, you're going to have a fallible memory.
Is that another way to say she lied?
No, it's another way to say that, as I mentioned earlier, I think she's telling the truth, but I don't think it's accurate.
I mean, you know, I wonder how much she really needs this testimony about the hand coming out. I think that it being unzipped is not so much the defense trying to persuade the jury that he could have gotten out himself, or is it more about the fact that this hand is the triggering force that then causes her to react in the way she did?
And really, if you're going to tell a lie about, you know, drunken shenanigans, putting your lover in a suit, and his hand was out. That was the easy lie. No, it doesn't make sense. I think that she's relaying, just like Daryl says, the truth as she remembers it, but she was super drunk. And as someone, I mean, I'm a retired semi-professional drinker. You do ridiculous stuff when you are wasted.
I get it, but I think this is an important point, because it gets to her intent. Like, she's saying, I did not want him to die, I did not want to kill him, and I didn't think he was going to die. And then she tells the jury that she's basically leaving the top of the suitcase open when she goes upstairs to sleep. This is an open suitcase.
So it's fair to say, Vinnie, you've got a lot of questions about what happened and aren't certain.
No, I think she lied, because I think he would have gotten out.
No, here's the issue. This is what struck me during this whole presentation. Your approach as a former prosecutor is so different than what we saw in that courtroom. I was shocked that the prosecution did not hammer home those very points, did not intervene when her lawyer started to assist her zipping it up. It was it kind of lacked what you would expect in terms of a really passionate disaggregation of whatever she's saying and all the implausibilities therein, and really kind of harping on those very points. I think what shocked me isn't so much whether she's telling the truth or not, it's that the prosecutor didn't lead the jury down that path at all.
Right. Well, there'll be an opening during the closing arguments, right? He can come back out.
The opening of the suitcase.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to make hay out of that the entire time. It's going to be central to the summation.
They have to do that. They have to do that.
They haven't so far.
Right. So what are your bottom line thoughts here? Because this thing's going to wrap up perhaps this week, maybe early next week.
My thought is, I think she should be found not guilty. I don't believe that she...
All the way.
Yeah, this is Daryl. Shocking. I believe that she did not want to kill him. She was trying to get even, and then she became frightened. And when a hand came out, whack, Leave me alone. I'm
so
scared to death.
the fact that his hand comes out helps her is what you're saying.
In my view, it does.
That's what she said.
Wow. I thought the hand coming out and then her hitting his hand with the bat to make sure he doesn't get out would be a bad factor.
If it happened next week on Halloween, that's a whole different story.
You know, I think you tried this case very differently, Vinnie. But I think another issue that the prosecution has is how they've charged it. 1 count of second-degree murder, right? With all we've heard and all we've seen, again, I'm really surprised at the defense's case.
Wow.
You know, and are they going to be able to prove second-degree murder?
Gets convicted, but is innocent. I really believe that she didn't intend to kill him. I believe that a death happened due to mistake, due to but it's not a criminal act in my opinion, but she's gonna get convicted.
You know what's interesting? If she's found not guilty because of the great lawyering of James Owens, it's because of the show. When she was looking for a lawyer, I put the one ad up. James Owens was watching and waited for someone to take the case. Nobody took the case. He made the call because he believes, like all of you believe, like all of us believe, that if you're charged with murder, you should have a lawyer, period. Like you should have, if you're charged with murder, whether you did it or didn't do it, you should have a lawyer.
Every once in a while.
It's just the Constitution, you know, it's just a little piece of paper called the Constitution.
All right, we'll see. I'm shocked, though, by what Daryl said tonight. Can I just say that? Can I just be on record?
And I just want to make it very clear. I was an assistant state attorney in Dade County. And normally, I am very pro-prosecution.
All right.
And by the way, they blew the Casey Anthony case by asking for the death penalty.
Okay.
In my view.
Daryl Cohen, Molly Palmer, Josh Schiffer, thank you so much. When we come back, I will reveal something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German, 2 young girls brutally killed in the woods of Delphi, Indiana. Richard Allen has been charged, but what is the evidence against him? Can any witnesses identify him? Tonight, we investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, coming up next, only on Court TV. The convicted murderer of the horrific honor killings.
What happened that night?
Speaks out for the first time on camera.
You make it sound like you're the victim here.
Exactly. Interview with a killer. Sunday, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. And who do we have for you tonight? Melody Farris from the Burn Pile murder trial, accused of murdering her husband, breaking down in court. Shocking moment, because usually in court, this is what we see day in and day out. Kind of stone-faced, right? But today it was all different. She was listening to an interrogation and implicating or pointing the finger perhaps at her own children for the murder of her husband. Take a look. This is the part of her interrogation, and it's hard to hear.
In my mind,
here.
Didn't want to do this because I know I didn't do it.
In her mind, keeps thinking, did one of them do it? One of her children, because she says she knows that she did not do it. That trial continues, and we'll keep an eye on it, obviously. In the meantime, please take a close look at your television screens. We have a missing child tonight who needs your help. This is Jeremiah Shatavis Lahaim Ward. Jeremiah, just 16 years old, missing down in the Panhandle of Pensacola, Florida, since October 16th. If you see him, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference. 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Pensacola Police Department in Florida. That's it for now, but we've got another hour coming up. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.